So when they enter the school, their first objective, really for the first month, month and a half, and then they repeat this every year, is just to listen and to learn. So they do what we call a possibility audit in the school for the first month, where they just literally go and they talk to every single person in the building. They get to, students, to the security guards, the folks who serve lunch, all the teachers, and they ask them, what are you seeing are the biggest needs in the school? What's not working? What is working? What do you see as possible here? So they first go in and they try to understand. I think this is like change management 101 or whatever. Like you go in and you try to understand what's actually happening and not make assumptions about what you think is the right answer to problems that you haven't identified yet. So they do that first, and then once they've done that, and they step back and synthesize some of that. What they do is they sort of, there's sort of a three big things that a dream director does in a school. One is they provide coaching. So dream directors are always available for one-on-one coaching to students and to anyone else in the building. Two is that they offer, we call courses. These are all start with C's. We do a lot of alliteration and corny things in the future project. So it's coaching courses. So they offer content to students, but completely different kinds of content. Content and leadership and communication and things like that. The 21st century stuff. To help them figure out how to translate their big ideas into action. And then they work on culture change, and they do that by looking at the entire building and by working with the principal and the staff and the students. So that's sort of the activities they use. Process-wise, the first thing they do after they while they're really doing their possibility audit is they build what we call a dream team. So they go out and they find student leaders from across the school, but not the obvious ones necessarily. And maybe like the valedictorian is part of the dream team, but so is a kid you thought was going to drop out, like the captain of the football team. It's like all sorts of young people who represent the entire school, and they bring in a couple of teachers and staff members, people who really get what's going on in the school. And they provide them with sort of comprehensive training that we've been building over the last couple of years to essentially make them into dream directors too. So the first thing they do in a school after they do their listening is multiply their own impact. So they start by having this big team of 20, 30, 40, depending on how big the school is, other dream directors who are mostly students, but still. And then they go out and those students are trained to start building these future projects. So they go through a process which involves coaching, which involves courses, of identifying something that that they really love, that they care about, that moves them, and then identifying something in the world that they want to change, and then translating that into a future project. So we've got a student who grew up in a really violent neighborhood in Brooklyn and was really passionate about skateboarding, and so he built an organization that now every summer, he's in college and comes back and still runs this, every summer brings together students or young people from his neighborhood for a skateboarding clinic to keep them off the streets, to get them excited about something that they love, and to therefore reduce violence in his community. So that's like one example of hundreds and hundreds of projects. We have kids who've written books, a lot of kids who make music, and kids who've launched nonprofits of their own, and who've built apps and all sorts of things. So dream directors help them, once they've identified something that they care about, help them through the courses and coaching to translate that into action. And you ask what happens when they try and they fail. Well, we totally embrace that, first of all, because the whole point here is that we're meeting young people where they are. So some kids will come into this and be ready to launch a major national campaign, or something like that. And some kids will come in and say they want to start an anime club for their 5 friends who love anime. And we say, great, we start wherever you are, and then we, you see where you can push yourself by the end of a year. And so if they try something and they fail, one of the biggest things that happens is that kids, build up the first event or the first meeting that they're about to hold, and then like 5 people show up and they're devastated. So when that happens, because it happens always, you step back and you figure out, well, what did we learn from this? And was this even what you loved? Like, did you really do everything that you could have done to get, the turnout here that you wanted? And if not, was it because you didn't know how, or was it because you didn't care about it that much? And then they move forward from there. So we build that process of like reflection and then of restarting into what a dream director does with their young people.
Okay, I think, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And yes, with the
on behalf of IIM America's small memento, and I call upon Shiva Nevani to present that.
Thank you.
Right, so, you get it? Okay. So, yeah, we'll take another short break, and then we'll have an interesting panel after this. So, yes, people were complaining that I was, being a little bit about, tight about the time, but, we do want to end it in time, so that's one of the reasons that we'll have ample time for networking.